All right, hey, we're kicking off week 2 of our collection that we started off last week that we are calling Who Are You? And we're talking about finding our identity in Christ, all right? And so we're talking about what that looks like from a biblical perspective, because we all know that there are a lot of different things that are going on in the world, and people are telling you who to be, how you should act, say this, don't say this, all of these different things, right? And reality is that if we are Christians, we should be believing that Jesus already set the standard for how we should live, and we find our identity by following him. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And if you're taking notes, and you should be taking notes because note takers are so good, guys. You guys are doing just fantastic with that. It's historical influencers. There it is. I like it. If you're taking notes, and you should be, the title of my message tonight is You Don't Define Me. You don't define me. How many of you guys have ever had someone who tries to tell you what to do and it just irks you a little bit, right? Like, listen, if it's your parents, okay, they're supposed to tell you what to do, all right? But I'm talking about that friend of yours that thinks that they just know a little bit of everything. And if that person's sitting next to you, put your hand down, okay? It's that friend that they just irk you a little bit because they feel like they always know everything, and that they always are trying to tell you what to do and how to live, and you should do this and you should do that. And so finally you kind of just stop asking their permission or their questions or anything like that, because you just get so sick and tired of hearing it. We live in a world and a society that in everything that we do, it is defined in a certain way. It is told to you in a certain way. It is told to you to do it a certain way. And in reality, when you become a Christian, when you believe that Jesus died on the cross and he rose from the grave, your perception of life should shift. The way that you see things, it should shift. In the way that you see yourself, it should shift. Why? Because we believe as Christians that we were made for a purpose from a purpose. And what was that purpose that we were made from? Is from Jesus dying on the cross so that we can then go out and we can love those around us. And we can love in the way that Jesus loved. And so my challenge throughout this whole series, kind of an overarching challenge, is make sure that you go and you read about Jesus. Well, Caleb, that's kind of a simple thing to do. Yeah, but how often do we actually learn about the life of Jesus? Or is it just when you come on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning to church or whatever church you go to, or maybe you're even a part of a group at school and you hear about Jesus, right? Is that the only times that you know what's going on with the life of Jesus, or are you doing research for yourself? I was just talking to someone today about this. It's kind of a little bit off subject here, what we're going, but I was just talking to someone today about this, that in the world that we live in, and in our Western church world that we have not done a great job of teaching people that it's important to do their own research when it comes to following Jesus. We've not done a great job of that. We've not always set the tone for that, because here's the reality of it. Even though I'm a pastor, even though I know the Bible, I've grown up in church, there are still times that I have said things that are wrong. They're not correct. They are biblically incorrect. And sometimes, unfortunately, that leads to people thinking the wrong thing, or going down the wrong path, or whatever it may be, the wrong thinking of how Jesus actually was. And reality is yes, I do my homework. Yes, I study. Yes, I prepare. But the reality is you guys should be checking that. You guys should be making sure that you know what Jesus said, what was happening in the context of those times. You're not too young to be doing that, because it's within the context that we figure out how that should apply to our life today. And when you can figure out how that should apply to your life today, you are much better off than when you were before, and you have a better understanding of who God is asking you to be. Not necessarily what God is asking you to do, right? We focus way too much on what is God telling you to do? Who's God calling you to be when you get older? And what are you supposed to do for a profession? No, that's not at all what we should be focused on, but we should be focused on who is God calling me to be? How am I supposed to love? How am I supposed to forgive? How am I supposed to serve others? Those are the important questions that when we read the Bible and we see the life of Jesus, that we should be chasing after. And so it's a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but I want us to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to make sure that we understand and know what the Bible is saying for us. Because whether you know it or not, the Bible is still alive and well today, and it's still speaking into our lives, but you have to allow that to take place in your life. But I say all that to say, it is time that we stop letting our friends, culture, and even to a certain extent our family define who we are. And it is time that we allow Jesus to be the one who defines who we are. Is that okay? Am I just hearing things? Okay, I was like, actually, hold on. If you have your phone out, make sure it's on silent, because I definitely didn't, but there we go. There's a story in the New Testament that I want to look at today, and this is just kind of a small part of what we're going to be talking about, but if you're taking notes, it's in Matthew 16, verses 13 through 19. Okay, I'm just going to be writing the reference is just up on the screen. Go back on a later day or time and look up what is talking about here, okay? But this is Jesus, and he's talking to his disciples. And it says, when Jesus came to the region of Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven." So Jesus, he's asking the question of, who do you think I am? Anybody ever seen that bowler? You know, I don't even know that. Who do you think you are? I am. This just reminded me of. No one knows what it means, but it's provocative and it gets the people going. Okay? It's not a song. Anyway, it's not a song. It's a movie quote, and it's okay. Thanks, though. He's in this moment, and he's challenging the disciples. These are the guys that are following closest with him in his life. These are the people who are walking with him on a daily basis. And he's challenging them to think about, do you actually believe that I am the Son of God? Do you actually believe that I am who I say I am? Anytime you hear Jesus say, "I am," that is referencing back to saying that I am God. He's not just saying like, I'm him, okay? He's just saying like, I am God. And so he's asking this question. He's saying, who do you guys think that I am? And so Peter then speaks up and he says, "You are the Son of God. You are who you said you are this whole entire time." And so then he looks at Peter and he says, "Upon this rock," meaning basically based around the way that you are going to lead the way, I'm going to build my church. And because of the way that Peter led the way, we are now still having church to this day. We're still talking about Jesus to this day, all because Peter decided to look for his identity in Jesus. Now, the beautiful thing that I love, and this is really where I want to get to tonight, the beautiful thing that I love is that when you look at the life of Peter, he was not always so bold and courageous with his faith. When you look at the life of Peter, he was not always so bold and willing to say, "Jesus, you are the Son of God." How many of you guys know, and if you've read the New Testament, that there was plenty of times that Peter messed up. There's plenty of times Peter fell short. Right? There was moments where he was unsure of even maybe who he was at times. Right before Jesus, he goes into the Garden of Gethsemane, goes and prays. He says, "Hey, disciples, stand watch while I go and pray." Jesus goes and prays, comes back. All the disciples are passed out. They're asleep. Couldn't hang even for just a little bit. And then Judas brings in the troops. He says, "Hey, that's Jesus. He's the one that we're arresting." And what does Peter do? Peter decides that he's not going to let anybody touch Jesus. He becomes Jesus' bodyguard in this moment, and he grabs a sword and he cuts off a dude's ear. My question for Peter when I get to heaven will be, was that really good accuracy, or did you miss and you were trying to cut off his head? Like, how do you just cut off someone's ear? That's got to be pretty either just lucky or intentional. I'm not sure. We'll find out one day later. But in that moment, I don't think that was someone that Jesus would like to say, hey, I'm going to build my church upon you. Someone who lets his anger get the best of him. Yet he said it before that moment ever would happen. And he's God, so he knew that was going to happen down the road. Then Jesus goes and he's on trial. He's standing before all the people and they're trying to decide, hey, are we going to kill this guy or not? And someone comes up to Peter and says, hey, aren't you one of the disciples? Peter says, no, that's not me. Yeah, I think Jesus is one of your best friends. No, that's not me. You got the wrong guy. No, I'm pretty sure that it's you. Hey, no, I told you that's not me. That I don't have anything to do with that guy. I've never seen him before in my life. And then what happens? The rooster crows. And the prophecy that Jesus had foretold about him saying, hey, you're going to deny me 3 times, came to pass. And this is all after Jesus had already said, I'm going to build my church around you, upon your shoulders, upon the rock. And I find it interesting that even though Jesus knew all of this was going to happen, he still put so much faith and trust in who Peter was. What Peter could have very easily done, even from the very beginning of their journey, when Jesus first has an interaction with Peter, who was Simon before this moment, what was his occupation before he became a follower of Jesus, before he was one of the disciples? Anybody know? He was a fisherman. He had a moment, he had an encounter with Jesus where he could have either gone and followed Jesus, or he could have kept his identity in who he was, or who people thought he was, or who people thought he should be. And he could have stayed a fisherman. And he probably would have had a very nice life where he still provided for his family and did awesome, great things. But he decided that there was something better. There was something calling him to something to do more than just be a fisherman. And so he left his identity behind to follow him. He could have let what his family was telling him to do or say or be dictate who he decided who he wanted to be. And then later in the life, in the story, he could have let the situations where he was wrong, where he decided to slip up, where he messed up, where he denied Jesus dictate who he was going to be. He could have let the outside noise say, hey, this is who you are. You're a mess up. You're a screw up. You're never going to get things right. You're always going to fail. Why is it that you can't just try a little bit harder? Whatever the case may be. He could have let that define him. He could have let that set in and say, well, I guess this is it. This is who I'm going to be. It is what it is. But here's the thing that I want us to get tonight. And here's what I think that Peter understood. Write this down if you are taking notes. If man didn't make you, then they can't define you. If man did not make you, then they cannot define you. And let me tell you, the person who made you is the one and only our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He designed you with a perfect purpose for your life. He designed you for a reason. He designed you for such a time as this. Does anybody ever wonder why you were born in the time that you were born in? I've always wondered that. For me, as I read through the Bible, one of my heroes of the Bible is King David. The only man in the Bible that God says is a man after his own heart. Avery, if you want to go ahead and come on up. He's the only person. Yet David messed up time and time again. And I just wonder, God, man, you had people like David who did incredible things, who did mighty things, who did incredible things like going out and killing Goliath, going out and leading the nation of Israel. He did amazing things, and man, I can't wait for one day to meet him, but what am I supposed to do? Right? Like, I get it. Like, you created people like David to go out. There's other heroes in the faith that I read about, and I'm like, man, but these people did this, or just heroes in your life. And you look at it sometimes and we see like, man, like, They can do this, they can do this, they can do this. What can I do? I'm here to remind you, you are not defined by what other people think you can or cannot do. You are simply defined on who God created you to be. And I can tell you exactly who God created you to be. It's someone who loves big. It's someone who forgives even bigger. It's someone who walks around with joy even in the middle of chaos. I didn't say walks around with happiness. Happiness and joy are two very different things. Happiness will come and go. Joy is something that you choose. You choose to be joyful in the middle of the mess. And Peter had a choice to make in his life. There was a decision that had to be made. He could have either gone back. Jesus died on the cross. He denied him 3 times. They thought it was over. They thought it was done. Peter could have just gone back and stayed a fisherman. He could have gone back and stayed. There was a moment where Jesus reveals himself again after he was already resurrected, after he was already out of the tomb, to Peter. And what was Peter doing in that moment? You guys can probably guess. Starts with an F. Fishing. Good job, Wyatt. Give it up one time for him. We'll work on that. A little bit, some of us a little bit behind. That's okay. Not a retry. It's okay. He was fishing. And Peter in that moment could have stayed in that boat and never gone back with Jesus. He could have said, I've messed up too many times. I've failed too many times. People told me I'm such a screw up. I will never be the rock that you think that I'm going to be. But Peter made a decision that the one that created me, if he called me, then he will equip me, and that's enough. This isn't going to be up on the screen, but I want you to write this down. If he called you, then he will equip you. That's enough. If he called you, he'll equip you. That's enough. There will be people in your life who will always question every decision that you make, good or bad. There will be people in your life who will question every small step that you take. But in those moments, I need you to remember this one thing, that if he could look at Peter, a guy who messed up, a guy who didn't get it right, a guy who doubted, a guy who was unsure at times, and he could look at Peter and say, upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. And then over 2,000 years later, we're still going to be having church today because of a guy's decision to say, I'm not going to stay where everybody thinks I should stay. I'm going to choose my identity, and I'm going to choose to put that in Jesus. Then you can too. But it's a choice that has to be made. You have to learn who is going to define you. There's an old painting. Hayden, go and throw that picture up there for me. Okay. Some of you, is anybody art people? Anybody an art person? You guys love art? Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure, like, I enjoy like cool things that look good, but like, I don't get art. Like, it's not, like, my son's art is like the best thing in the world to me because it's my son's, but like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? I don't understand it. Okay. Here's this painting. Let me ask you something. This was sold in 2015. How much do you think it was sold for?
2.3 million. I don't know.
Any other guess? I'll give one more person a guess.
180 million.
15 million?
180 million.
Okay. Let me throw it out here to you. This painting is by William de Kooning, and it's called Interchange. Anybody get that out of that? What does interchange even mean? I don't know. That doesn't help it. It was sold for, in 2015, for $300 million. $300 million for what looks like my 6-year-old could have done. Now listen, it is very easy for me to sit here and judge this painting and say, I don't think that it's worth $300 million. But I am not the one who painted it. I am not the one who had the thought process behind it. I am not the one who took time to create this. I'm on the outside looking in. So I am not the one who got to decide the price tag on that. You know who got to decide the price tag on it? The creator of the painting. And some of you have let your identity become what everybody else has told you you're supposed to be, or who they think you need to be, or who you should grow up to be. And in reality, you need to let your identity be in the one who created you from the start. The one who took time and molded you and shaped you. The one who knows every hair that is on top of your head. Unless you're like me and you have no hair on top of your head. Listen, the Bible talks about how God's ways are higher than our ways, or His thoughts are deeper than our thoughts. He took time to create the grass. He took time to create the ocean. He took time to create every animal that we see. He took His time. He crafted it, He molded us, and all of this stuff that He made that's awesome, that's great. Do you know the one thing that He made in His image? That's you. You were made to be in relationship with Jesus. You were made to find your identity in the one that created you, the one that saved you, the one that can give you peace in the middle of your storm. There are a lot of things in life that you can go and do, and that's incredible. I'm so glad that you can go and do literally pretty much anything that you guys want. But who you are while you are doing those things is way more important than what you ever will do. And you can only find out who you are when you decide to follow Jesus.